carbohydrates people are eating. Because you and I were talking off air about how our political system, our governmental system, the hierarchical system that lends itself to totalitarianism is intimately connected with agriculture and farming. The first empire that we know of, the first empire in recorded history, was the Sumerian Empire, right? Yeah. The Sumerian Empire appeared out of nowhere, by the way. That's a whole other story, how that happened. But so the Sumerian Empire is the first empire in recorded history, and the Sumerian Empire became an empire because they were the first civilization that figured out how to farm and how to become big from farming. Now, why is hegemony and tyranny related to agriculture and related to farming? Well, farming's a lot of work, and it's hard to get people to do a lot of work. Not only that, but irrigation requires ditch digging, and so people had to dig ditches, and human beings aren't inclined to go dig ditches and to go farm if they don't have to. They had to be made to do that. So our political system of tyranny and our governmental system that's based on hierarchy and authority is intimately wed to this idea that people didn't want to farm, but they had to be compelled to farm. And once we had this compulsion into farming, then we figured out, we didn't have to move around as much. You could have civilizations, you could have towns, you could have cities. So it's in the interest of governmental structure, but it's not in the individual's interest. In the individual's interest, it's to find good sources of food and go to those kinds of food. In the interest of the country, in the interest of the system, agriculture plays a big role. And so we find that wherever, as soon as agriculture came, that's when civilization came, and that's when government came, and that's when political tyranny came.
Yeah, and it's interesting, you always see in Egyptian hieroglyphs, for instance, they pay taxes in grain.
Exactly. But who do they pay taxes to?
Yeah.
Exactly. They pay taxes to the government. The individual didn't need it. The individual was fine going and hunting a zebra once in a while, but we got convinced into thinking that our lives would be better off if we were farming and we had food that was local and we didn't have to go out and hunt and forage for food. But our health began to decline as soon as we started to farm, and our health didn't catch up until the turn of the 20th century when we got more protein in our diet. In the Middle Ages, you ever seen those? I don't know if I was telling you, I was telling somebody. In the Middle Ages, sometimes you go to a museum and they'll have little houses or little beds and they show you how people lived in the Middle Ages. The beds were really small, the houses were really small, people were 4'10" and 5'2", and they only lived to be 20 years old in the Middle Ages. Our Cro-Magnon ancestors were big, strong, muscular people. Our hunter-gatherer ancestors were 6 foot tall and muscular. And when archaeologists or anthropologists are looking at bones and they want to date the bones, they look at the bones and they see if the bones were weak or they see if the bones were strong. And if the bones were weak, they say, oh, grain-eating culture. And if the bones were strong, they say, oh, protein, meat-eating culture, hunter-gatherer cultures. So not only did our system of political tyranny emerge with the advent of agriculture, but our decline in health emerged as well. And it didn't catch up until very recently. In fact, arguably, it hasn't even caught up.
Yeah, why don't you talk about those Founding Father quotes? Because I always think about what Henry Kissinger said, not only that food is a weapon, but that if you control the food, you control the population.
Isn't that amazing?
And, yeah, not only does it go back to the history of agriculture, I mean, it was part of the history of the founding of this country.
That's right. Benjamin Rush and Thomas Jefferson, two of the Founding Fathers who signed the Declaration of Independence, warned against the centralization of medicine. Thomas Jefferson said, if you limit people's ability to access health freely, of their own volition, deciding what they want to do themselves, then you can control the people.
Can we pull up those quotes? Very interesting.
And Benjamin Rush said the same thing. Benjamin Rush, by the way, is a physician. And he warned about it.
Here's that quote.
This is Benjamin Rush. The Constitution of the Republic should make special provision for medical freedom. And he said this in 1787. This is amazing to me. To restrict the art of healing to one class will constitute the Bastille of medical science. All such laws are un-American. He says this in 1787. This is amazing. And despotic. Unless we put medical freedom in the Constitution, the time will come when medicine will organize into an undercover dictatorship and force people who wish doctors and treatment of their own choice to submit to only what the dictating outfit offers. This is what managed healthcare is. Exactly what Benjamin Rush warned against. Managed healthcare is when you go to HMO and they select what kind of medicines you get based on what kind of illness you have, based on what the book tells you. And that's what Obamacare is, Aaron. This is the promise of Obamacare. Managed managed healthcare where you go into some kind of institution, you walk in there, he takes your blood, the doctor takes your blood pressure, they look in a book and to see what kind of prescription should be dictated to you based on what your blood pressure reading is, based on what your cholesterol reading is, and you get that medicine. And by the way, that medicine is bought in bulk from some pharmaceutical company, and you get to have it, or the HMO gets to buy it cheap if they agree to dispense just that brand for your particular illness.
And it's related to the same reason we see the FDA and the other entities trying to intimidate people for growing vegetables and selling raw milk and the rest
books.
Of it.
Even they burn books if the books say something that they shouldn't say.
Well, yeah, he talks too about locking up the medical knowledge. The alternative stuff we're trying to get out now.
That's right. That's right. And that, you know what? That's what the internet is about. We're so lucky for now. I don't know what's up in the future, but for now, Aaron, gathering information is the most important thing you can do. The reason I do what I do is because I want people to have this kind of information. For the listeners, for people who are out there, there is nothing more important than gathering information about this whole, about how we take care of our bodies and how we don't take care of our bodies. To me, our access to the internet that we have for now is a gift from on high.
Let's take a look at that Jefferson quote, too. Do we have that? If the people let the government decide what foods they eat and what medicines to take, their bodies will soon be in a sorry state, as are the souls of those who live under tyranny.
Isn't that great?
That's Thomas Jefferson. Not sure on the year of that quote, but regardless, it's from the founding period, and that really is part of the fight. We're trying to have a revolution of the mind here, but that goes right along with the bodies, and that's what the InfoWar and the rest of it is all about.
Well, InfoWar is information.
Yeah.
That's exactly what that is. Now, personally, I'm a healthcare professional, so I focus on health, but I'm also involved, I follow what's going on politically, and I follow what's going on in terms of the New World Order, in terms of the centralization of power on all levels. But if we're sick, Aaron, if we have cancer, if we have colon problems or Crohn's disease, if we have autoimmune problems, or if we're just a slave to food where we can't stop eating, we will not have the wherewithal, we will not have the power, we will not have the strength to fight this New World Order. So, to me, this is a precursor to